This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Draft zone.
who else can it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the 2015 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where I aim to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2015 NFL Draft by simply looking at each and every selection made by said team in their draft and giving each and every single pick a grade using our baseball grade scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as I cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we get those individual scores and tally them together, get an aggregate, apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks made by that team in the draft, and voila, you get a final grade for that team's draft. Move on to the next team in the process picked by you. That's right, you at home, the viewers, are the ones in total control, as this is the you pick format, or as I like to call it, the up format, where you simply just need to be the first to leave a post in the comment section with two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. We're starting to get down to the last few teams left in the process, so make sure that you're getting a team that has not been done in the series already. And so with all of those particulars out of the way, we're talking about the next team up in the series, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And man, was I high on this team last year going into the season. But as we all know, in this league, you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. Buccaneers didn't have a lot of things going for them last season, but it was Lovey's first year, it was Jason Light's first year. Hey, first years can be a little bumpy and rocky. You learn from your mistakes, you're in a new environment, you make adjustments. That's what the Buccaneers are in the process of doing. But you gotta start at the position that matters the most, and that's the quarterback position. That's what the Buccaneers have done in this draft. If you're gonna get a quarterback and you want him to succeed and excel in this league, you need to be able to protect him. Buccaneers also did that in this draft. So Buccaneers accomplishing a lot of big things in this draft. Made a lot of mistakes last year in free agency. It happens. But the thing that you gotta respect about the Buccaneers, they realized quickly and admitted, okay? The first step on the road to recovery is admitting that there's a problem. Buccaneers realized they made a mistake on Anthony Collins. Cut bait there. They realized they made a mistake on Johnson. And I told them before they signed him, I said that man had one good season in his contract year. Before that, go look at his production. Tell me that this guy is worth a long-term deal with a bunch of money attached to it. Don't you do it. And then listen to me, they signed Michael Johnson up and they realized very quickly he's not the guy that they thought he was either. But again, recognizing a mistake and parting ways with that individual, Buccaneers did it the right way, the smart way. And so now you can go back to the drawing board, you fix what is broken. I think they've done a lot of that in this draft. And so let's talk about the Buccaneers 2015 NFL Draft as we start in the first round. First overall selection. Doesn't it feel great to be first? You don't want to be first, because you know what that means. You had an abysmal season unless you got that pick from somebody else. That's not the case with the Buccaneers. They were just abysmal a season ago. So, first overall selection, quarterback out of Florida State, Jameis Winston is the selection. Famous Jameis, as they call him down in Tallahassee. This is a kid that came into the league with a lot of different things surrounding and swirling around him. The interceptions in 2014, those turnovers that really bothered some people. I wasn't one of those that was really overwhelmed by all the interceptions, because I felt like he tried to do too much. You know, the year prior, he just let the game come to him. He had playmakers around him like Kelvin Benjamin, going up and making plays for him. It wasn't as hard. He just went out and let the game come to him. He was having fun. More of 2014 was like pressure. It was more pressure on him where, all right, we got to repeat what we did last year. We got a target on our back. Everybody's coming after us. We now are no longer the hunters. We're the hunted. And I don't have as much talent around me in terms of skill guys. A lot of younger players like Rudolph out there catching passes from Urban Lane. It wasn't as set like it was a season ago. A lot of younger guys having to come in and break in, and he was having to kind of bring these guys along. So he felt the burden of needing to be the guy. So you got the turnovers. Then, of course, you got the off the field stuff, the assault, the whole crab legs thing, the standing on the table at the student union. We know about all of those transgressions. And so that was something that can you trust this guy with the responsibility of being the face of a franchise? Is he mature enough? Does this guy get it? Is he going to be one of those guys that gets paid and he's satisfied? We've seen Jameis Winston at 245 pounds. We know what that looks like with the big beer belly gut. And we've seen that guy. Can we trust him with money now to still have the same drive, hunger, and desire to be great? These are all questions that people have had over the last 6 months about Jameis Winston and should he be the first overall selection to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL draft. At the end of the day, he was the best player in this draft. You can't convince me otherwise. You can try, I'll listen. But at the end of the day, my answer remains the same. Jameis Winston was the best player in this draft. He was the best quarterback option. If you're looking to build your team around a quarterback that can change the game, he was it. So I feel good about Tampa Bay taking this risk. I feel like they have the proper infrastructure around this young man. Derek Brooks was a mentor to him at Florida State. And so you look at Derek Brooks, he's close with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers franchise. He's also in the front office of the NFL. So that's a mentor for him in Tampa Bay. I think there's enough guys. Lovie Smith feels comfortable being able to mentor this kid. There are enough guys in this locker room that have been there, done that. And I think they can bring him into this locker room. The infrastructure is set. He'll be fine. I like this guy. The talent speaks for itself. This kid has everything you need to excel at the next level. I'm not going to break him down. I've already done that. And really, I've already said too much. But when you're the first overall selection and you come in with all this hoopla, it's worth spending a few minutes on talking about what this guy means to this franchise. Because last year, I thought this was a talented football team going into the season. Now, we saw a lot of holes that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had in their roster. And some of the offseason acquisitions didn't work out the way that they had hoped. And so things kind of fell apart at the seams. But make no mistake about it, this is still a talented Tampa Bay Buccaneers football team, and I think the defense is going to be the catalyst for this team moving forward. But now that you have an offense that's still going to be behind because you got a rookie quarterback, and rookie quarterbacks make mistakes in this league. So you're still going to have the offense slightly lagging behind. The defense is going to carry the day in Tampa Bay. They're talented on that side of the football. You add a quarterback like Jameis Winston to the mix, and this team is going to slowly but surely come along in that NFC South. I don't expect the NFC South to be as bad as it was last year. And so I don't think you're going to be able to get away with the 8-8, 9-7 record and win this division. You got to come with your best foot forward if you're going to try to win this division. Don't know if Tampa Bay is going to be able to do that, but they gave themselves the best opportunity to do so by drafting Jameis Winston in the first round, first overall selection, quarterback Jameis Winston. For me, out of Florida State. You know what this is. You knew what this was before I even told you who the pick was. It's hit hard. It's hit deep. It's a home run for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're looking to change the game. Many of you, including myself, think that this is what the game's been missing in Tampa Bay. And if you're going to start building a franchise that is going to be a consistent winner, it all starts with your signal caller and the guy barking out the orders in the huddle under center. Jameis Winston is going to be that guy now in Tampa Bay, hopefully for the next decade and years to come. Not gonna break him down, like I said, I'm not gonna break him down because, and I didn't finish my statement earlier, but if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Jameis Winston and many others in the 2015 NFL Draft, check out my Draft Prospects 101 series, as I've broken down many of the guys that I thought were elite football players in the upcoming 2015 NFL Draft. And so that's why I'm not going to break him down. I'm going to go on to the next pick, second round, 34th overall selection, offensive tackle out of Penn State, Donovan Smith is the selection. And this was a guy that nobody was really talking about throughout the process. You didn't hear Donovan Smith's name, maybe because he wasn't going to be a first round pick and everybody knew that, but he was the first tackle taken off the board in the second round. That means something. I say this a lot and I mean it because I feel like it's true. The second round is the new first round, okay? The third round is the new second round. You gotta value your picks early on in the draft, and to me, the second round is almost an extension, especially when you're picking that early in the second round. It's like another first round selection. This guy was on the radar of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and maybe they were looking at someone else and they said, if this guy slips to us, we'll take him. But Donovan Smith, for me, is a guy that I watched on tape, and I was highly impressed with what I saw. And I'm like, why didn't I hear more about this kid throughout the process? I had no idea that this guy was playing this well at Penn State, because that's a bad football team out there at Penn State. Lacking the amount of scholarships necessary for a team to really flourish in college football with the whole scandal that they went through. And so that's a situation that's not conducive to having a lot of good football players come out of that program right now. To see him and see the way he was playing out there, it's like a diamond in the rough. So let's talk about Donovan Smith. Huge, 6'6", 338-pound offensive tackle. And I look at him and I think of a guy that is no longer in Tampa Bay, but was your rock solid left tackle for about 5 to 7 years out there in Donald Penn. He reminds me of Donald Penn. Penn was a little bit shorter at 6'4". This guy is mammoth at 6'6", but you know, Donald Penn is a 340-pound tackle. This guy's 338 pounds, so we're talking about relatively same size. He reminds me a big hulking figure like Donald Penn was. Donovan Smith reminds me a lot of Donald Penn, but there are some stark contrasts. When you're 6'4", arms aren't as long, Donovan Smith has a lot of things you really value in a left tackle. And I'm a big proponent of, if you're going to get a quarterback, you need to make sure that you can protect him right away. The worst thing you can do with a quarterback, draft him into the league, throw him to the wolves, can't protect him, he becomes gun shy. We've seen it happen to so many first overall selections in the draft, so many other quarterbacks that were highly talented that got destroyed because the offensive line in front of them wasn't any good. And by the time you were finally able to protect them, it was too late. That guy had been destroyed as a quarterback. Mentally, he was fragile and he could not be restored. You gotta protect your quarterback. You have to protect your investment. Buccaneers did that right away in the first pick after Jameis Winston, and even going forward to the next pick, and we'll talk about that after this pick. But to continue to break down Donovan Smith, moves extremely well for his size as the next pro. I was extremely impressed with the way this guy moves. He's very fluid for a 6'6", 340-pound offensive lineman. I don't expect him to get out of his stance, get into his kick slide, and just have it be smooth and have everything run like a well-oiled machine, but that's exactly what it looked like. And I put on some tapes, and I really wanted to see this kid because I said, you're protecting the #1 overall selection in the draft. So I wanted to see what this kid looked like in some situations where it was going to be less than ideal for him. So I put on the Ohio State tape. Joey Bosa, who's going to be a high draft pick next year out of Ohio State. How do you fare against him? He held it down versus Joey Bosa. That was one of the reasons Penn State was able to take that game to overtime and almost stun Ohio State, because he was holding it down in that game. Now, he did end up leaving that game early. Left, I think, middle stages of the fourth quarter with a concussion, I believe. So he did not finish that game, but he was dominant in that game. I only saw Joey Bosa beat him one time. I actually saw him pick Joey Bosa up one play and throw him to the ground and pancake him, a little bit of syrup on top. I was really feeling his performance against Joey Bosa, one of the best defensive linemen in all of college football. You go backwards though. I said, I'm going to take a look at him versus Randy Gregory against Nebraska. What did he do against a long-armed athletic freak? Joey Bosa, a little bit different football player than, say, a Randy Gregory. A lot stronger, a little bit more craftier. So it was good to see him in that kind of situation. Then I said, let's see you against a longer, faster, more athletic defensive end. How do you handle yourself in that position? He said, I handle myself with ease, baby. I take care of business. That's what I do. I put in work. And so he put in more work against Randy Gregory, and I was sold as to what this guy was bringing to the table for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has good feet. And what those good feet allow him to do is stay in front of a guy like Randy Gregory. Gregory wants to get to the outside and use that speed. His feet won't allow Gregory around the edge without allowing him to put his hands on him. And so Randy Gregory wasn't able to beat him and bend that corner and get around him and get to the quarterback unabated. His feet allowed him to get out of that stance, get into that kick slide, stay in front of him and mirror Randy Gregory. It was beautiful to watch. Long limbs, and I talked about his arms being long when I referenced Donald Penn and how his long arms weren't as long at 6'4", this guy's 6'6". Donovan Smith's arms are extremely long, and what it does is it allows him to contact the defender before they can get their hands on him. And again, I always talk about having long arms. They make a big deal out of it, and at first, I'm not a big measurables guy. I mean, at some point, you gotta just say, what do you do when you're on the field? But this does actually play a huge part in what you do on the field. If your arms are long enough, you can contact the defender, get your hands in their chest, and stop their momentum before they even really get started. Whereas if you got shorter arms and they're able to get into your chest first, it really allows them to be the aggressor on the play, can bull rush you, can toss you out of the way, can club you, can do a number of things. It just changes the entire complexion of the play. So his arms are a huge plus and bonus for Donovan Smith, and I saw that on tape numerous times. Impactful punch. To go with those long limbs, he has an impactful punch. So you get the arms out there, you get the punch out there, and you see guys hitting the bag, and you see them quick, boom, bam, 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 and extending those arms out there. And he is one of those guys that has a punch with it. It was very noticeable against Randy Gregory. Gregory would try to get up the field. Boom, he would hit him with a punch, and Randy Gregory, not the heaviest guy in the world, it would stun him, it would stop him in his tracks, and it would give Donovan Smith an opportunity to reset, anchor down, and not allow Randy Gregory to get by him. Same thing he did with Shaquille Calhoun of Michigan State. So his punch is very impactful, and I was very pleased with what I saw on tape from him. I was actually saying to myself, he looks better than some of these guys I actually saw go off the board in the first round. I was kind of blown away because to not have heard his name at all in this process, when he was selected, I was like, who? Donovan who? Who is this guy? Out of Penn State? I haven't heard the name of any Penn State player this entire draft process, and this guy shows up on the radar. Second pick in the second round. It just blew me away, and to see how he was playing, very impressed with what I saw on tape. He finished his blocks. I already told you about the time I saw him take Joey Bosa, toss him on the ground, pancake him. He was a guy that finished his blocks. A lot of times, when he got his hands on one of the defenders, they weren't going to be the one to get into play and help bring down a ball carrier. It just wasn't happening. He did a great job of locking guys, locking guys up, and not allowing them to impact the play at all. He does a great job. That, to me, I say this all the time, it's a pet peeve of mine with offensive linemen. Finish your block. That's half the battle. You know, you can start off great initially and do all the things you need to do to put yourself in a position to win on that particular snap. But if you do not finish the block, all of that stuff you've done in the past, it's in vain because that guy can easily disengage and get to the football. You gotta finish the block. Donovan Smith does that time after time after time. He generally wins hand fights. And what I mean by that is, most times than not, 9 times out of 10, he'll win hand fights. It was funny, I was watching him in front of Joey Bosa. And Joey Bosa uses his hands aggressively. One of the reasons why he's going to be a high-level selection if he continues to do the things he's done throughout his career at Ohio State next season. But Joey Bosa was trying to use his hands, and Donovan Smith was having none of it. They were doing the whole hand fight, karate chop thing. Both of those two players were really going at it. And Donovan Smith was like, man, are you done yet? Like, literally, are you finished? Joey Bosa had done all of this. And in front of him was Donovan Smith like, you done yet, man? You're not going anywhere. Do you realize that you're no closer to the quarterback now than when you started? Do you understand that? Okay, you can stop with all the hand fighting, man. You're not getting to the quarterback. Stop it, man. Stop it. So he generally wins the hand fight, and we know how important it is to win that battle because if that defender is able to knock your hands down, you're defenseless as an offensive lineman. Your hands are the lifeline of you protecting the quarterback. You don't have your hands, you don't have a chance. And so he wins that battle 9 times out of 10, and that is a huge part of the reason why this guy, those long arms, the punch, it's all there. Why this guy was the 2nd overall selection in the 2nd round. You go to his cons. Doesn't bend well. Now, I mean, 6'6", 340, yeah, that guy's up there. He's pretty tall. Hard for him to get down and bend. I was watching him against Michigan State, and I saw this guy, looked like a linebacker, number 40. Didn't look as big as a defensive end, but 40, 44, I think it was 44. He was giving him some trouble, and what he was doing was he was initially beating him off the snap with a little bit of quickness, but 6'6", 340, long arms, he was able to recover. But as soon as he was ready to recover and get his hands out and extend, as he turned that corner, that defensive end / outside linebacker would dip that shoulder down, and he had a hard time getting down and reaching him. And as he dipped that shoulder, he went underneath and was able to bend that corner, get back to the quarterback, and sack the quarterback from Penn State. So there are times where you can tell that 6'6" frame is not always the easiest to move. And bending is one of those things that is tough to do when you're 6'6", 340 pounds. So that's something that you gotta watch. These guys are the next level, man. They can bend that corner like Beckham. I tell you what, man. Some of these guys, they're literally at like a 45-degree angle when they turn that corner. It is ridiculous. So that's something he's going to have to work on, because guys will duck down, damn near be on their knees going around that corner. You got to be able to either push them down on the ground and pancake them, or you got to be able to at least push them enough to where it knocks them off balance and they don't get to bend that corner and get back to the quarterback. He can occasionally be beat with quick moves to the inside. Now, the one move I saw Joey Bosa beat him with was a quick move to the inside. And like I said, Joey Bosa was an exceptional football player. And what he did was he set him up. He had been going outside the entire game, and he knew that Donovan Smith was going to open up his hips to the outside to make sure that he wasn't beat to the outside with speed. And what Bosa did was he went and took an outside approach, then went back inside with a quick move. It really caught Donovan Smith off guard. He was able to get inside and really cause havoc on that play. So that's a little bit of what he's going to have to clean up. And he's going to end up. It's all about learning at the next level. He's going to get baptized. It's going to be baptism by fire. I expect this kid to be playing day 1 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he's going to get beat. It's going to happen. But I expect him to learn from these instances, get better. And down the road, I can easily see this kid being a Pro Bowl tackle, holding it down, no problems on the left side of that offensive line. In the 2nd round, 34th overall selection, offensive tackle out of Penn State, Donovan Smith for me. You can put it on the board! Yes! It's a home run. Back-to-back jacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love the idea of pairing up your starting quarterback, your franchise QB, with a left tackle that's going to hold it down for him for the next 7 to 10 years. It just makes too much sense for me, and I like what I saw out of Donovan Smith. He's a prototype, big, physical, long tackle. Those guys win generally in this league, and he's got a little bit of athleticism to match those other measurables as well. You go to the 2nd round again. Buccaneers trade back into the later portion of the 2nd round with the Indianapolis Colts, surrender their 3rd rounder and another pick down the road to be able to come up and get another guy that they were high on. 62nd pick overall, offensive lineman out of Hobart and William Smith College, L.A.B. Marpet. And this was the sensation of the February 2015 NFL Combine. L.A.B. Marpet really put everyone on notice. And I think every year some small school kid does this. Last year it was Teron Armstead, if you remember, out of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. Ends up coming off the board, I want to say in the 3rd round to the New Orleans Saints. He ended up starting at left tackle for them in the late stages of that season. So if you do your work, you do your due diligence in your collegiate career, dominate the competition when you're at a smaller school, get an invite to the Combine, and then you're able to showcase your talents and your skills, and you wow everybody, you too can be the next Teron Armstead. You too can be the next L.A.B. Marpet. Now let's talk about this kid because his combine performance wasn't the end-all be-all. He put in work to get to the position, to get invited to the combine, to then show you that he was a talented football player. Let's talk about him. 6'4", 307-pound offensive lineman, and I mean that in every true sense of the word. This guy's going to probably have the ability to play all 5 positions at the next level. Let's go to his next pro. Athletic offensive lineman, fastest O-lineman at the 2015 NFL Combine, which is why he was so talked about throughout the entire process, because he lit it up at the Combine. 4'9", 40, the only offensive lineman to pierce that sub-5 40 time, and so this guy was definitely moving, and at 307 pounds, it is a rarity these days to see guys moving that fast at that size. So you know what you're getting an athlete at the next level. Physical with heavy hands, and you know how it is when you're talking about a D3 athlete, and you know my one single prerequisite to anybody that goes to a smaller school. You know, I've said this so many times. If you've been watching the series and following me, you know what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway because everybody isn't a veteran of the channel and the program. And so all I ask, my only prerequisite for small school football players is dominate the competition, okay? You can't help that the guy in front of you is 5'11", 245 pounds as a defensive end. That's not your problem. All you can do is flatten him and pancake him, put a little bit of extra syrup on top. That's all you can do. All you can do is do your job. They put him in front of you, destroy him, all right? You can't help what the competition is. All you can do is be better than them on every single snap. That's essentially what Ollie Marpet did at Hobart. His tape was so easy to watch because he dominated on every play. And the only thing that does is it reinforces the fact that you gotta ask the question, and I'll ask it later on. But also, you don't find many cons, you don't find many faults. He dominated and he showed physical traits, physical hands. He showed heavy hands in pass protection in the run game. He finished blocks, that's the next pro. He recovers well. When he was occasionally beat, he was able to get back into play with that athleticism, push the guy around, and keep the pocket integrity for the quarterback. He's a versatile football player. That's the next pro. You're talking about a kid that at Hobart and William Smith College played left tackle, the premier position on the offensive line, which you would expect out of a guy at a D3 school getting drafted in the second round of the NFL draft. He probably was playing the best position and the most important position on his team's offensive line, which he was. But coming into the league, everybody said, hey, this guy looks like he's going to be an even better fit at guard. So automatically, if you play guard, you need to be able to play both guard positions. So you assume he played left tackle, so in a pinch, if you need him at left tackle, if you play left tackle, you can play right tackle, essentially. Now, it's not the same thing. Angles are different, footwork's different, but if you can play left tackle, I assume you can play right tackle. Same thing with guard. If you can play left guard, I assume you can play right guard. And the guy was working, and even at his pro day, was playing center, just to show the scouts, hey, I can do that too. We all know, on most game days, you're only dressing 7 offensive linemen. So the more that you can do, the more positions you can play, the more likely it is that not only are you going to make the roster, but you'll be dressing on game days, and that's what's important for offensive linemen. So this kid is extremely versatile, going to give you a lot of different positions that he can play and give you some depth along this offensive line if he's not starting. And last but not least, he's a winner. At Hobart and William Smith College, this kid was a part of a class that did not lose a single regular season game. 4 straight undefeated seasons in the regular season. Now, they were never able to capture the championship, but undefeated regular season is undefeated regular season. The guy is a winner, so you need that kind of pedigree. You're getting that in your locker room now. For a team that has struggled to find ways to win, you're getting a guy that doesn't really know what it's like to lose. You need that. It's so fascinating to me how a mentality can help change a culture, because if you're part of a loser and you always lose, you expect to lose, it becomes commonplace. Guys aren't troubled by losing, and you do not want to let that fester in your locker room. You never want guys to feel like it's okay to lose. So having a winner come in your locker room is a big deal. Cons. There's only one con because he dominated on tape. He did what I asked him to do, my one prerequisite. He checked that box. He dominated the competition. So I can't sit here and tell you that he was getting beat inside. I can't tell you he was getting beat to the outside. I can't tell you he was getting bored. He dominated the competition, okay? He did what I asked him to do. So the only question that I have is the only natural question that anybody should have with this kid. D3 athlete, level of competition, question mark. What is it? Are you going to be able to make the jump from D3 athlete to NFL player? That's the question. We saw what he did at the Senior Bowl, felt good about him there, saw what he did at the Combine. He was among the best among his peers. We feel good about those things, but he did not have the pads on consistently. Of course he did at the Senior Bowl, but we're talking about game in, game out, snap in, snap out, day in, day out. Can this guy perform at a high level against the best athletes in the world? We will see. This guy has a lot to prove. And so we'll see what Ali Marpet, look, I mean, have you ever heard of Dickinson College? Ithaca, you heard of Ithaca? Rochester? Those are the teams he was playing. The three tapes that I did watch, you know, and the film was very sparse, okay? But the tapes that I did watch, those are the teams I watched him play against. Dickinson, Ithaca, and Rochester. Good luck with those, okay? So that gives you just a little bit of what this guy was up against at his school at Hobart. So there's a lot to like about this kid. And in the second round, trade up to come and get him, so you know how the Buccaneers felt about him. In the second round, 61st overall selection, offensive lineman out of Hobart and William Smith College. Ali Marpet is a triple. The only question that I have is, are you ready for some football at the highest level there is? That's the only question I have for this kid. All the rest of the boxes have been checked. We just got to see, can he handle the level of competition that's coming his way at the NFL level. You go to the fourth round, 124th overall selection, outside linebacker out of LSU. Kwon Alexander is the selection. His pros, you're talking about a 6'1", 227-pound linebacker. Normally that's not a pro, but the way that the NFL is moving to the smaller, faster, quicker, athletic linebacker, the more and more I'm becoming desensitized to these smaller linebackers. At first, I had a problem with it. Shaq Thompson, I'm looking at him, he's 228, and I'm like, there's no way this guy's gonna play linebacker in the National Football League. I'm looking around at all these other linebackers. The Eagles drafted one out of one of the Pac-12 schools, and I'm looking around and I'm saying to myself, he's out of Texas, matter of fact. And I'm saying to myself, there's no way he's gonna live in this league. He's 230 pounds. No way he's gonna make it. And what I have to realize, and what I've come to the realization is that that's what the league is now. It's so many teams spreading you out, putting four receivers on the field. You want linebackers that can play against these, wide open offenses that are going up and down the field, throwing the football all over the field. You want linebackers that can run and chase and make some plays, and also still be on the field, take on offensive lineman, and still make a play in the run game. So you're seeing smaller linebackers come into the league, and so I'm okay with that. And really, for the defense he'll be playing in, this cover two shell that Lovey loves to employ, linebackers like that, like Kwon Alexander, are going to be just fine in a system. And I'm really drooling at the prospects of him learning from Levante David is really what I'm looking forward to, because this kid here has some talent, some real tangible stuff. You watch the tape, you're impressed. If he can just learn from one of the best linebackers in all of the National Football League, you feel like he's got a bright future ahead of him. He's an athletic sideline to sideline linebacker. That's the next pro, 4'5", 540. So he's out there running just about the same speed as Melvin Gordon III, which was what, 4.52 he ran, and he was a second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, or excuse me, first-round pick to the Chargers. He's running just about the same speed as that guy. We expect him to be a stud at the next level. Kwon Alexander can run with that guy. So this guy's athletic. He's gifted, sideline to sideline. You see it on tape. Tremendous closing speed is the next pro. There's a play. They're playing against Alabama, and their quarterback, and his name escapes me right now, he's an athletic quarterback. He can run, he can scramble, he can create some things on the move. He can make something happen out of nothing. Play breaks down, he's able to pick up yards with his legs. He gets outside the pocket. LSU's playing against Alabama. and this is a tight ball game, as it always is with LSU and Alabama. They're in overtime, and he's scrambling outside the pocket. And the thing I love about, and I'll talk a little bit more about this because this is another one of his pros, is he's a very disciplined football player. And so Kwon Alexander initially stays in coverage. He's got a running back coming out of the backfield, so he picks him up, stonewalls him at the line of scrimmage essentially, and doesn't really allow him to get into a route. And after he realizes that the quarterback has nowhere to go with the football and he's really not looking to throw anymore, he's really looking to try to run and pick up the first down, Kwon Alexander takes off. And it seemed like in a blink of an eye. I literally blinked my eyes and opened it back up, and he was sacking the quarterback. And again, this is an athletic, scrambling, mobile quarterback that Alabama has under center. And he hawks him down in literally about 4 steps. And it was so fast, and it just blew me away. I was like, wow, that was lightning quick. He has that kind of ability, and so this guy has tremendous closing speed. You see him react to a ball carrier going to the outside. He sorts through the trash, and then when he finally gets in a space where there's no one in front of him and he's able to accelerate, he's on that ball carrier in no time flat. He excels in coverage, and to me, that's one of the biggest pros that he has outside of his speed, is his ability to excel in coverage. This is a guy that dropped into coverage quite a bit, and at 227 pounds, you kind of expect that from a guy. He drops into coverage, is able to run with running backs, even some wide receivers can run with tight ends, drops into coverage, plays his space and his area very well, keeps his eyes on the quarterback. He's natural. He doesn't have to turn his back to the quarterback to drop into a zone comfortably. He can keep his eyes on the quarterback, see what's happening in front of him, and also still get into his zone. There was one play that I did see where he allowed Andrew White to get it. It's a dragger across. I want my linebackers to touch him up. You're coming across the field on a dragger, I want you to bust him up. I mean, give him a nice shoulder, chuck him. Don't let him come across in front of your face, free reign, and get right in front. And he tried to chuck him. He was late on the chuck. And then Andrew White was able to run right by him, catch the football, get up the field. The 11-yard gain, first play of the game. So you have those things that happen from time to time, but he excels in coverage. Surprisingly, at 6'1", 227, the guy stacks and sheds well. I was amazed to see him go up, stonewall a guard or a tackle or a center, stand them up at the point of attack, discard them, get to the ball carrier. And let me go ahead and knock this next pro out the way because it has a lot to do with what I'm talking about now. He tackles, led LSU with 90 tackles on the season last year in 2014. So that just gives you a little bit of what this guy is about. He was able to, again, and this is why I'm starting to change my tune on these smaller linebackers, because just because they're smaller doesn't mean they're void of being physical, okay? Doesn't mean they're lacking physicality. This guy was going up, challenging offensive linemen, standing them up, and then getting rid of them and getting to the ball carrier. It was impressive, and most of the guys that I saw on tape that were 230, 235, 225, 228, they weren't doing that, okay? They may have been getting, like Paul Dawson, drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, is a phenomenal linebacker, tackling machine, 136. He wants no part of an offensive lineman. At 235 pounds, at 6 feet flat, that guy wants I didn't see him stack and shed not one single offensive lineman. He was slipping and avoiding blockers, but he was not stacking and shedding. Kwon Alexander was taking on linemen head on, and in certain cases, dumping them out of the way and getting to the ball carrier. It was beautiful to watch. And again, that's not something that I was expecting to see from a 6'1", 227-pound linebacker. Last but not least, his final pro is he plays a very good assignment football. And that was also something that I don't want to say I was surprised by it, because for the most part, guys do what they're told. I mean, you can expect a guy, the play call calls for him to check the running back out of the backfield. He's going to check the running back out of the backfield. But this is the thing. When you're a linebacker and the running back stays in the block, you're now free to do whatever. You want to come on a green dog now? You can. I mean, now you can blitz. It's free reign. If you want to just stay and kind of watch the eyes of the quarterback, see if you can't fall into something, you can do that. I mean, it's up to you now. If your job was man-to-man on the running back and the running back stays in the block, You can do whatever. But what happens when you think the running back is going to stay in and block and he's on a delay and he's coming out of the backfield on a pass and you've already committed to going after the quarterback? What happens then? This guy was very good at going to blitz because the running back stayed in, and then the running back would try to come out of the backfield. Kwon Alexander decided none of it. No, not going down like that. And he would run with him. Or running back comes out of the backfield, and and really this is the moment of truth for a linebacker in coverage, man to man. When that running back comes straight up the field and comes right at you, he's got a two-way go of it. He can go inside, he can go outside, okay? Or he can just run right by you. So really he's got a full go of what he can do, all right? And Kwon Alexander was great at, okay, you're gonna run this arrow route, you're gonna come out and you're gonna try to shoot up the field. All right, I'm right with you. I'm in your hip pocket, I'm gonna try to break the pass up. I'm gonna take a perfect pass for you to get this pass in here. And that kind of speaks to what I was talking about with him excelling in coverage, but he stayed at home, backside of plays, great backside pursuit. That's where that sideline to sideline ability comes into play, which I mentioned earlier. This guy stayed on the backside of plays. The cutback was taken away because he was where he was supposed to be. He's just fundamentally sound when you're talking about assignment football. Again, another staple of a guy that you're bringing into a cover 2 shell. You need to do your job, and he does it well. And I think that's something that Lovie Smith and his staff saw on tape with Kwon Alexander. You go to his cons. He will overrun plays, however. And so you get some gap discipline issues. And I saw a couple of runs with teams where you're like, okay, you cannot overrun your gap. You have to have gap integrity. And he would overrun plays. They would have a fake handoff to the running back and he would stretch it out. Kwon Alexander would run with that running back, overrun his gap, and the quarterback would keep the football, take up that gap that has been vacated by Kwon Alexander. And so just little things like that where you're supposed to be somewhere, a running back presses the hole, goes to the outside, Kwon Alexander overruns his gap because he sees what the running back is doing, and the running back sticks his foot in the ground, and there's a cutback lane where Kwon Alexander was supposed to be filling. He's no longer there, and all of a sudden you get a run out of the backside, and boom, just like that, you get a 25-yard gain on the play that should have went for a maximum of 4 yards. So these are some things he's going to have to clean up. Broken ankle in 2012. True freshman season, broke his ankle. Didn't miss a lot of time, but it's a broken ankle nonetheless. So I mentioned it. Played great football thereafter, so don't really worry about it. Let's hope that that's done and that's not something we'll be talking about as he is now a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. But in the 4th round, 124th overall selection, outside linebacker out of LSU, Kwon Alexander for me is a triple. He fits what the Tampa 2 shell is all about. He's going to come in. The thing I didn't like is that I didn't see him get his hands on a lot of footballs in terms of picking passes off, which when you're in a cover 2 defense, you love to have guys that are very, very good and adept at getting their hands on football, but he did rip out some footballs. I saw him on tape go in there, take the football from that same Alabama quarterback that I was referencing earlier. Go in there, take that football out, rip it, ball come. Blake Sims is his name. Rip that football right on out of his hands, and ball was on the ground. His teammate, Danielle Hunter, scooped it up, took off for a touchdown. So he does make plays, okay? He does make plays. I told you he's a tackling guy, led LSU in tackles. So there's a lot to like here, man. And so I'm impressed with what he brings to the table, and I'm very eager to see what Lovie Smith is able to do with him in this Tampa Bay defense. 5th round, 162nd overall selection, wide receiver out of Nebraska. Kenny Bell is the selection, 6'1", 197-pound blazer. Okay, this guy can run. That's the first pro, 4'4", 240. And let me go ahead and lump this next pro in there because to me it just makes too much sense to do so. Explosive acceleration. And I mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. There's times where you find out what a guy runs and it doesn't match up with what you saw on tape. Case in point, 1st round pick of the Baltimore Ravens, Bashad Perriman. I'm watching the tape. I don't see 4.26 speed. I don't see that. I don't see that kind of 40. Okay, but that's what he ran in a straight line. 4.26 40. Okay, fine. I'm not gonna argue with you. I saw it myself. He blazed it. But I don't see that on Sundays or Saturdays. I don't see that. With this kid, you see 4.2 40. Okay, he's flying out there. He's explosive. He's getting behind the defense. He's taking the top all for the defense, and he's making plays down the field. So this guy is very explosive, and acceleration is the thing that does it for me, because I love how he comes off the line. He comes off the line with a series of moves, a couple stutters, you know, and he's coming in, out, in, out, in, out. You really don't know what he's about to do, and he takes off. Boom. And next thing you know, guys gotten even with you, and you know the motto, you know the mantra, even leaving. All right, if you're a receiver, you get even with the D-back, you're leaving the D-back, and he's gone. I mean, good luck catching him. If the quarterback puts it on the money, you can say go ahead and good night, kiss the nurse. It's over with. It's a touchdown. So this guy has explosive acceleration. I just talked about him getting off the line, good route running. He wins with his route running ability as well. And so there's a lot of things to like here with Kenny Bell. And I looked at him, and you know what's funny? I saw this frail body kid, and I'm like, there's no way that this kid is 197 pounds. And I know football is one of those sports, they will over-exaggerate some of your attributes, your height, your size, all of that stuff. But if they tell me he's 197, he's 197. But I look at him, and he looks like he's about $185, to be honest with you, about $190. Soaking wet. But saying that, he competes in the run game as the next pro. I don't want to sell this guy short. Saying that he competes in the run game means that he's giving it his all, he's trying, he'll give you what he's got, but it's not enough. That's usually what competes in the run game. He's got the right temperament, the right mindset. He wants to block, he's just not good at it. That's what competes in the run game generally means when I say it. That's not the case with him. I think I really misspoke when I said he competes. This guy is stonewalling dudes, man. And he's doing his job to the umpteenth degree. A lot of big runs that happen for Amir Abdullah, and again, anytime you get a big run from a running back, the receivers have to block. It's a necessity. Any big run that happens, unless it's a situation where the defense puts all their eggs in the basket, and they bring all 11 up to the line of scrimmage, and they miss, and there's a seam, and they hit it, and there's nobody back there, it's zero. Gone. That's the only time where the receivers don't have to block. But if it's a traditional formation with receivers out wide, you gotta block, or else that big run isn't happening. This guy, Kenny Bell, blocks, man. And the runs on his side, they go from 7-yard runs to 17-yard runs. They go from 11-yard runs to 37-yard runs, because he's taking care of business on the guy in front of him. Competes in the run game doesn't do him any justice. This guy is physical. For his 197-pound frame, which I'm questioning at this point, he sure does pack a mean one in the run game. I'm impressed with the way he blocks. Consistent production. Here's a guy at Nebraska over the life of his career. He just had consistent production. Never wowed you with a big breakout season, but every year you pretty much knew what you were getting from Kenny Bell. You were getting anything from 35 to 55 catches, from anywhere from 450 to 850 yards receiving. And that was what you were getting. He left Nebraska as the all-time leading receiver in yards and catches. So that just gives you a little bit of framework as to what this guy did. And it was just out of sheer constant production, sheer consistency. This wasn't one of those years where he went off for 97 catches and 1,485 yards and 12 touchdowns. He didn't have one of those years. It was just consistent production from day one to the day he left that campus. You go on to his next pro, special teams value. You also get a little extra here, okay? So just when you thought it was all done, he gives you an extra gift. Here you go, special teams value. He can run back punts, he can run back kickoffs. Had a kickoff return for a touchdown in 2014, so he can do that as well. When you're that fast, you're a 4.42 guy, you can do some things. And there's a number of things. They're gonna try you at different positions. You show them that you're fast, they're gonna say, all right, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And he's one of those guys, gives you a little bit of extra value on special teams. We know the struggles of the Buccaneers over the years on kickoff returns. I think they just got their first kickoff return for a touchdown in franchise history like 4 years ago. It just happened. So this isn't a team that lights it up on special teams. You could use a guy like Kenny Bell, and I think that's what he's gonna come in and help you do. So you go to this cons, groin injury in 2014, it really hampered him, slowed him down. Early in the season, had a groin injury, actually missed a game because of that groin injury. So this is a guy that had some, and speaking from experience, as a guy with a groin injury playing football, it doesn't go away. The only thing that heals a groin injury is time. There's nothing you can put on it. There's nothing you can do. Only thing that's going to heal that injury is time, which is the case for most injuries, but that is a nagging injury, if I may say so myself. Concentration drops. And notice that I didn't put my famous occasional in front of that. I saw a lot of drops out of Kenny Bell, man. Disturbing even, okay? He would run some routes, and there's nothing worse than the 3rd and 4, wide open, you know it's a first down if he catches it, drop. Nothing pisses me off more than a guy that shakes free on 3rd and 3, out in the flats, quarterback puts it on the money, he's already thinking, I got the first down, I'm looking up the field, I'm about to go get 30 off of this one, I'm open. Let me get it and go, much faster than slow. But you know the rules to the game, so you gotta play, and you gotta play right, okay? You can't run and gun and have fun and ball without the ball. Where you going, man? You gotta catch the round thing first. You gotta catch that pigskin, put it away first, man. And he dropped the football, and he dropped it on about 4 or 5 different occasions on the tapes that I watched, and I'm like, man, this is getting old fast, man. You gotta catch the goddamn ball, dude. And it's crazy because the first tape I put on, the first 2 catches he made, they were outstanding catches away from his frame. One of them, he caught it up here with a defender having his hand in between his arms and the ball, and he still caught the football and brought it in. I said, man, that's impressive. I went to write down in my notes, great hands, and then I stopped because he dropped the next 2 passes. Now, I want you to know something. There's a very big difference between these 2 things. Concentration drops and great hands. You can have great hands and have concentration drops. It happens, okay? Amari Cooper, first receiver taken off the board in this draft. He will have concentration drops. I guarantee you. Watch him in 2015, rookie season. I guarantee you he's going to drop the football. It's not because he can't catch. He's got great hands. It's concentration. He's looking around trying to see what he can do before he gets the football in his hands. It's all about, you want to know what the great receivers do? They make sure they catch the football first. Why Larry Fitzgerald didn't drop many footballs? Why Chris Carter didn't drop footballs in his career? Because they looked the football in first. I can't do anything unless I catch this first. So you can have great hands and still drop the football because you're not looking it all the way in. It's not a situation where you're Darius Hayward-Bay and you got stone for hands and you can't catch, right? It's not that type of situation where you're trying, you're concentrating, you just can't catch. This is a situation where he's lacking the concentration to make sure he catches the football before he turns up the field and gets more yards after the catch. He just needs to concentrate, man. But look, man, nothing perturbs me more at the receiver than concentration drops, especially on 3rd downs, especially in the end zone. You just took points off the board. You just stopped the drive from progressing, maybe turning it into points. Catch the football, man. But there's a lot to like here with Kenny Bell. I'm not going to beat him up because the guy made a lot of plays at Nebraska. He was one of their best receivers. And so in the 5th round, 162nd overall selection, wide receiver out of Nebraska, Kenny Bell for me is a double. If we were minus the concentration drops, I'd venture to say that he wouldn't be here in the 5th round for you to take. He would have been gone off the board in the 4th round or the 3rd round. But because of the concentration drops, he's here for you in the 5th round. You got some good value here. I like the pick. You go to the 6th round, 184th overall selection, wide receiver out of Utah. Kaelin Clay is the selection. 5'10", 195-pound wideout out of Utah. Comes in and he's a solid route runner. That's the next pro. He's a guy that gets in and out of his breaks quickly, and that leads us to our next pro. Quicker than fast. This is a guy that, he's not a blazer per se, but he's very quick and sudden in his movements. A number of times I saw him catch. He's the guy that catches the wide receiver screen, the tunnel screen. He's that guy. He's not the one that's generally blocking on that play. He's the one usually getting the football because they know he can make a guy miss out of space. That one unblocked defender, he can make him miss and get up the sideline. So he's quicker than fast. He's got good agility. And so that's the kind of guys you like to put in the slot. And he played a lot of slot at Utah. Tough as nails. The one thing I can't stand is when a quarterback puts you in harm's way. And nobody puts you in harm's way more often than garbage quarterbacks. Garbage quarterbacks love to put you in harm's way because they look around and they start to panic and they see you and they think you're open, but they don't see the defender right there waiting to blaze you as soon as you touch the football. And they had a bad quarterback in Utah. Their quarterbacking situation wasn't ideal. They actually had a dual quarterback situation going on. They had a left-handed brother, and then they had a white dude that was right-handed. And I think his last name was Wilson, and he was garbage. So he throws an out route to Kaelin Clay, and Kaelin Clay catches the football. Unbeknownst to him, there's a corner just sitting out there in zone coverage waiting, and he plasters him. And Kaelin Clay tries to get up, but he's a little woozy. Wind's knocked out of him. He goes back down. He's got to leave the game. He's out for about half of a quarter. It was a nice hit, man. I ain't gonna lie. He took a shot, man. Took the wind right out of him. I get it. It's happened to me before. Nothing worse than having a quarterback set you up for failure. And that's what happened there, but tough as nails. He came back in the game, fearless. He'll go over the middle of the field. He'll work the boundaries. He'll do whatever you ask him to do. He's a tough wide receiver. And it takes a tough wide receiver and a guy that's not all there upstairs to do special teams, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. That's how you know he's a tough football player. He competes in the run game. Now, unlike Kenny Bell, when I say he competes, and then I had to really kind of clean that up because Kenny Bell does more than compete. He dominates in the run game. He really does his job very well. This guy competes in the run game. Right? He can get beat up. He'll try. He wants to block. He wants to do his job. He's just not as good at it as some of the other guys in this draft, but he competes. He's got the mentality, and that's what I ask. Just give me a guy that wants to do it. If you give me a guy that's willing to sacrifice his body, I can do the rest if I'm a coach. And so he competes in the run game, trying to help guys get yards after the catch. Special teams dynamo, okay? This is the reason you drafted Kaelin Clay in the 6th round, right here. Because this guy can come in and change the game for you on special teams. And I talked about Kenny Bell offering you some special teams value. Get the hell out of here, Kenny, okay? Go play some wide receiver. I got a wide receiver right here that can change the game on specials, right here in Kaelin Clay. 1 year of collegiate football at a high level at Utah. His other 3 years, he came to Utah with 1 year of eligibility left. And so only 1 year of production. But was that 1 year dynamite or what? Dynamite! He came in and he blazed the Pac-12 with some explosive returns, the likes of which they haven't seen in a very long time. I'd say since Reginald Bush. I mean, this guy was ridiculous on special teams. 3 punt returns for touchdowns and 1 kickoff for touchdowns. So we're talking about 4 special teams, both tied for first in all of college football for the most touchdowns on returns. 4 of them total was the most in college football for any player. 4 returns for touchdowns. This guy was down there. And this isn't those type, like I saw the USC receiver, Nelson Aguilar, who's also good on special teams. I saw him return a punt for a touchdown. He caught the football and he really didn't even have to make anybody miss. He just ran up a big seam and just took off. Speed took over. He won a 45-yard punt return for a touchdown. These aren't those type of, this is I bounce off of one guy, I spin off of another guy, I juke the shoes out of another guy, and then I take off running down the sidelines. This is you stiff on one dude, you reverse field, you make 2 guys miss, punter's got an angle, he grabs you around your neck, you still tiptoe down the sideline and get in the end zone, touchdown. These were some really amazing punt returns for touchdowns. There's also a problem here, and I'll talk about it in a little while, but this is why you drafted this kid. He's going to come in. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of, if I can remember his name, he played for the Browns for a number of years. Joshua Cribbs is who he reminds me of. You know why he reminds me of Joshua Cribbs? Because Joshua Cribbs doesn't have elite speed. Neither does Kaelin Clay. But Joshua Cribbs was so physical when he ran, and when he got a seam, he just turned it up to another gear. You couldn't catch him. You see him with the arched back, the dreads flopping, and he was running as fast as he could, and guys would try to dive in his legs. They could never get Joshua Cribbs on the ground. He scored a touchdown. Kaelin Clay is the exact same way, except I think he's a lot faster than Joshua Cribbs. 4'5", 140 guy. So he's quicker than fast, but he's got enough speed to accelerate. When he gets out in the open field, it's hard to get him on the ground. You go to his cons. He needs to be stronger when competing for the football. There were a number of plays at Utah where I felt like he could have done more to try to win for the quarterback. Again, quarterbacking situation at Utah, not ideal in his 1 season there. And so you're not going to get the best passes in the world sometimes. You got to compete, you got to win, you got to make some plays. I just would like to see him be a little bit strong. I'm nitpicking though. I mean, some of those passes really wasn't much he could do. They were a little bit too high, a little bit too wide, but sometimes you just need to make a play. Sometimes football's in your hand and the defender's there, you just need to win. You got to wrestle it away from him, you got to be strong. I just want him to be a little bit stronger when competing for football, okay? And then his last con is the biggest con, and these are some issues that are easily correctable. It just takes focus on his part, awareness, all right? Look, for those of you who don't know, he had one of the biggest blunders of the 2014 college football season. I talked about him making big plays, and he catches a pass against Oregon and is able to get out in space. You know, he's one of those guys, he gets the football out in space, forget about it, okay? He turns into a punt returner on sight. I mean, he just turns into another guy, it gets into another gear, you forget about it. So he catches a 72-yard pass for a touchdown against Oregon, or so we thought. He goes 71 yards and then pulls a Deshaun Jackson on us against the Cowboys on Monday night and drops the football at the 1-yard line as he gets in and he's doing all of this and doing all of this stuff in the end zone celebrate. Oregon player picks the football up, young man rumbles all the way down the field for a 99-yard touchdown. The score would have been 14-0 Utah early in the game. They're at home. They would have had a huge advantage. Crowd would have been raucous. They would have had all the momentum in the world. Instead, he drops it at the 1-yard line. They pick it up, run it for a 99-yard touchdown. It's now 7-7. Oregon is now able to calm everybody down. They end up winning the football game 45-27. Changes the entire complexion of the football game. He does it again. Okay, the first time he did it was against Idaho State. First game of the season. He runs a kickoff return for a touchdown and a punt return in the same game. Kind of announces to the whole Utah fan base that I'm here because it was his first game. And they didn't know him, but they knew him after that game. He dropped it at the 1-yard. They didn't call him for that one. He got away with it. But if you watch it, he dropped the football at the 1-yard. It bit him later on in the season against Oregon. And I think the NCAA let the referees know, hey, watch this kid. He did it already. We let him get away with it once. Don't let him get away with it again. And so he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar against Oregon. But then, against Washington State, they are dominating the football game. And this is where that awareness comes into play. Again, he catches the football on a short pass. It's like a hitch. Gets a couple blockers in front of him. He makes the first defender miss. And this is a 3rd and 7 play. He catches the football, makes a guy miss. And it didn't look good. When he first caught it, I didn't think he was going to get anything. Makes the guy miss, gets up the sidelines. We're talking 35 yards down the field. Washington State defender comes from behind. First of all, ball in the wrong hand, okay? You're running near the sidelines, ball should always be in the outside hand, outside arm. He's got it on the inside. Guy comes from behind, grabs the football, twists him as he's pulling him down to the ground. Ball comes out, takes the football from him. Washington State football. They were up 21-0 in that game at home was Utah. They ended up losing that football game, something like, let's call it 45-44. They ended up losing that football game. So just gives you an idea of what this guy can do, but he's gotta have better awareness. Know who's around you. Know that you're not in the end zone yet. And I don't expect him, when you make that mistake once and you pay for it, I don't expect you to ever in your life make that mistake again. I'm expecting Kaelin Clay to be better because of him having gone through that once. You shouldn't have to worry about that as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. But this kid is talented. He brings a lot to the table. In the 6th round, 184th overall selection, wide receiver out of Utah. Kaelin Clay for me is a double. I'd like to see more from him as a receiver, but you know you're getting a special team guy. You know what this pick made me think of? Remember the kid you drafted last year, Heron out of Wyoming, like in the 6th round, somewhere around here? Is he here to take his place? I don't know, because the same brass that's here drafted Heron. It's not like they inherited him, so maybe you're just getting a whole bunch of young stuff. You want all the young boys to come in and take over. You got Kenny Bell, you got Kaelin Clay, you got Mike Evans from last year, Mikey from last year. You still got the old Wiley vet getting it done, D-Jax. So it's a lot of stuff out here, but there's a lot of young stuff too. Robert Heron from last year. I'm wondering, are you assembling a lot of young stuff around your quarterback? Because man, it's a lot of talent here all of a sudden. Let's see how it all meshes together. Young tight end and ASJ. There's a lot of stuff around here, man. I like this. So, and it's a nice compliment to the bog you got going on. Basketball on grass with all the big boys. Add some small guys around that can do a lot of the other stuff that the big guys can't. It's a nice little mix in Tampa Bay. You go to the final pick in your draft, 7th round, 231st overall, fullback out of Hawaii, Joey Iosefa. Okay, Joey Iosefa is the pick, 5'11", 247-pound fullback. Extremely physical when blocking and rushing the football. He was the bell cow at Hawaii when he was healthy. Can catch the football out of the backfield. He had a lot of catches, enough to satisfy me, to make me feel like you could throw him the football out of the backfield. And again, I love fullbacks who were first running backs because they have a much more natural feel for when they have the football, whereas you get fullbacks that are big, brawly fullbacks that they're just clumsy when they get the football. They're so excited you gave them a bone that they're not really looking to, run the airspace. They're looking to run somebody over and be physical. This guy's been a running back before. He's had a taste of success. He knows how to find the end zone. Speaking of which, he's a bulldozer around the end zone and tremendous in short yardage situations. You know what he reminds me of? Minnesota had a back that got a lot more touches last year than they ever envisioned in Matt Asiata because of the Adrian Peterson suspension and Adrian Peterson suspension. And then you had a rash of injuries. They had the secret weapon go down last year as well. And so Matt Asiata to the rescue. He was averaging like 3.2 yards a carry, which is terrible, but he still had like 13 touchdowns on the year because he was a load to bring down in short yardage situations. You know what he also reminds me of, and I know Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans will really like to hear this. He reminds me of a Mike Allstott type, a big physical, the same size. Mike Allstott was like 5'10", about 240, 250. This guy's right around that same range. Does a lot of the same things that Mike Allstott. Mike Allstott can catch it out of the backfield. He can run over guys. That's what Joey Iosefa is, and that's what he was at Hawaii. You go to his cons. Not a tremendous athlete. 5'0", 240 is what he ran at the combine. Cleaned it up, ran a 4.8 flat in his pro day, which is much better, much better. But I think he's more of a 4.8 guy than he is a 5'0", guy. But there's not going to be many times he's going to break out into the open anyhow where you're going to see that speed on display. So you really don't need to worry about that. These are the things you really need to worry about. Drunk driving arrest on October of last year during the season, was suspended 3 games because of it. I hope he's learned his lesson. I hope that these aren't transgressions that will continue as he is now a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if he does make this roster. And last but not least, multiple foot and ankle injuries. Had some bothersome injuries to his foot in 2014 to start the year. Missed the first couple of games of the season. Also had an injury to his ankle in 2013. Missed some games there. He played a total between the suspensions and the injuries, a total of 11 games the last 2 years out of a possible 26 games. So you're talking about a guy that has dealt with a number of injuries and suspensions. So hopefully he's able to stay healthy now that he's in the NFL and he's not getting the rock as much because, again, he was the bell cow at Hawaii. Not going to be asked or looked upon to be that at Tampa Bay, but he's still going to be at a very, very physical and physically demanding position like fullback. Hopefully he can stay healthy. In the 7th round, 231st overall selection, fullback out of Hawaii, Joey Iosefa is a double to round out this Buccaneers draft. I'm really impressed with what they did because they got the quarterback, then they got the sufficient protection for him in the next 2 rounds, and then they turned around and said, you know what? We're going to address his targets that he'll be throwing the football to, and let's see if we can't get some special teams help as well. Nothing like helping the quarterback out with some extra great field position because the guy just returned the football down to the 27-yard line, 1st and 10 from the 27. He got 27 yards to go for a touchdown. Sounds good to me. And so there's a lot to like about this draft. Defense was already strong, only spent 1 pick on the defensive side of football. They knew what they needed to do. They came in and did it in this draft. Let's look at what they were able to accomplish. 2 home runs to start out the draft for the Buccaneers. Then the next 2 picks followed that up with triples. And then the final 3 picks of the draft, all doubles. So that nets you 1 doubles bonus. You tally all that up together. Your aggregate is 22. You divide by the 7 selections made by the Buccaneers, and you come out with a 3.1 triple for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2015 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. And so that's going to do it for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Whew! Almost there. Who's next? There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In The Lab Room. That's In The Lab Room on Facebook and at In The Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.